think that's something people really struggle with. Is
humility opens the door to so many opportunities.
so much. When you think about it this way, for me, it makes it so simple. Like you said earlier, it's so easy to Welcome back to this week's episode of The Growth Game. Today, I have such a treat for you because I am talking with Alexis Andro, who is the founder of The Shift Creative, and they specialize in branding campaigns and brand installations. She is the brains behind some major brands. We talked about all things messaging, how to elevate your branding, how to show up authentically with your brand. So this is a must listen. Let's dive in. Hi, Alexis.
Hi.
Welcome to The Growth Game. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited that you're here, and I'm so excited to dive into talking about branding because I feel like you are such a queen of branding, and it's something that so many business owners struggle with in the beginning stages especially, but even like as you're scaling your business and growing your business, or you're pivoting or shifting, right? So I'm really excited to chat more about this today, but I would love to hear a little bit about your story as someone who's now a speaker, right? A business owner and a burn survivor. What has your journey looked like? And obviously you don't have to give the unless you want to, right? But what has your journey looked like?
Yeah, that's a mouthful, huh?
Yeah.
There's a lot there that we've there's been so many different shifts as with anybody, right?
Yeah.
So my start in creating The Shift Creative, which is the creative agency that I own, that really came from people speaking into me saying, I see something in you.
That's so cool.
You should navigate your life in this direction. I was a new mom. I had a 6-month-old daughter. I was a senior in college, and I started a website, and I named it The Shift Creative. And at that time, it was something that it's not today. I had dabbled in wardrobe styling, product styling, and then I started creating big, large-scale art, and then ultimately stage design and installations, and it just took a life of its own.
Yeah.
But that's through a decade, right?
Yeah, right.
That took a long time
Yeah.
to build. It was not overnight. And I actually went to school for counseling, and you touched on something briefly about me being a burn survivor.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason I wanted to pursue counseling. I have my degree in counseling. I still love it. But it's because of the trauma that I went through when I was 8 in a very freak accident at a gas station, pumping gas. It was spilling out, and static electricity ignited the whole pump and caught me on fire.
What a freak accident.
So crazy. I mean, who would have thought?
Yeah.
Not me.
Right.
But that's who made me who I am today.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, you would think, like, how does it correlate with like branding, or how does it correlate with business? But it is.
Yeah.
It makes you who you are. It allows you to lead with empathy. It allows you to put myself in the place of my clients and think like, okay, how would they want to be viewed, treated?
Yeah.
And how can I lead with excellence and leave a good impression with them after I'm done providing a service.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot there. I'm more than willing to unpack it.
Totally.
If we want to go deeper.
Yeah.
But that's like a synopsis there.
But I think for you, like, because you were 8 years old when that happened.
Yeah.
And though you were young, I'm sure you remember.
Yes.
Because that was such a traumatic experience, I'm sure. But you had a long road of recovery.
Yeah.
Right? So what do you feel like you learned from that?
A part of it is believing there's both good and bad. That I cannot trust anyone to fully show up for me because of the incident with my parents, and there's like a whole deeper thing there.
Yeah.
Because when I was in the hospital, I was kind of left alone for months with the nurses, and my family wasn't really around there then. And
it's
so
hard.
Because of that, I think I was like, okay, build a wall up.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to do things by myself, for myself. I don't need anybody. Now, that can be a strength when used in the right way.
Right.
but then it can also be a weakness.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to let people in,
Yeah.
you know, and so that affects relationships and that affects friendships. There's pros and there's cons, but I think now as a 34-year-old woman, I'm able to use my story of trauma and triumph to help impact others.
Yeah.
And
That's amazing.
I do that on my own personal, you know,
Your
time.
personal, yeah, that's amazing though. But like you are supporting women in amazing businesses. I mean, you are like the branding genius behind a lot of like bigger brands, which is so cool and so amazing. So like, what has that looked like for you? Like, as far as like, because I'm thinking of, you know, when I started my business, you know, and it was just, what did it look like when you first started it? And I know that like it was like you made your website first, and but to now where you have like these clients that you're helping and you're serving with like large scale branding.
Yeah. I think something to note, and I know everyone says this, but it's not overnight.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it really is. In this industry, you can get one huge client and then you get a lot of other clients that aren't big names.
Yeah.
And then you get a few bigger ones. And then there's, you know, and so I think that sometimes the expectation when we look at social media is, oh, wow, she just works with all these big names. And that's just how it's always been.
Yeah.
But we all start with 0 followers,
with zero
clients. Right. And so I do want to make a note of that. But I think also when we talk about branding and from where I came with the Shift Creative, I think that I want to, you know, tell whoever's listening that it's okay to rebrand and reinvent. We do not have to stay stuck in our infancy years when we first started and be like, okay, well, this was our logo, this was our brand, this was our messaging, this is just who we are. I'm too scared to pivot. I'm too scared to reinvent excuse me, the wheel. And I think that we get so pigeonholed and sticking to where we started that we don't allow ourselves to grow and develop. And it's really, honestly, it creates like a stronghold, if you will, and a ceiling when we don't, you know, continue to move forward and be okay to grow and pivot in our branding. So that's what I've had to do throughout the years.
You've done that yourself.
Yes, with my own business.
You've done that yourself.
Yes.
And now you can help other people do that too.
And that's what I try to tell my clients is I, with the Shift Creative, have rebranded numerous times, have really honed in my messaging so many times. You have to sit and think, okay, where I once was is not where I am now. And you always have to reflect and then pivot as needed. And a lot of times that includes rebranding and honing in on your messaging.
I love that you're talking about messaging. Let's like dive in a little bit deeper there because I think that's something people really struggle with is the messaging part. I know like for my students, it's like, well, like I know I want to portray this, or I know I want to like give this feeling with my brand, but how do I actually like communicate that in my messaging? So like what does that look like for you, like with your clients? Like what would you recommend people do if they're trying to really hone in on their own messaging?
I think first and foremost it is, what are you hit on feeling, but what are you, what are you wanting your clients to experience when they interact with your brand? So getting really, really clear on the experience. I think number 2, getting very clear on your goal of are you trying to attract who your ideal client is, right? So getting really clear on your ideal client, and then is it are you selling a course? Are you selling a product? What are you doing? And getting very, very clear on, okay, so this is how I'm going to message that particular offering. And I think that again, sometimes we get caught up in either we overthink things.
Oh my gosh, so much.
So we try to make it too witty. We're like, okay, well, I'm selling this product and I gotta just be witty. And no, sometimes we just have to say what it is. Call it what it is. You can be clear. You can be concise. We don't need to make it
doesn't need to be like a frou-frou name.
No, just be clear. What are you selling and what do you want your client to experience? And then we can build from there. I think we just need to lay that basic framework. and then build on that.
Yeah.
And if we want to throw in some, I'm all for a good witty saying.
Yeah.
Okay, I love wording. I love that.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes the messaging can get lost when you try to
Yeah.
to like cover it up and decorate it.
Especially in the beginning when you're just trying to like
Yes.
work out your messaging.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that that's a big area that people can fall short on because they're trying to stand out when really we just need to simplify.
Yeah. That's so good.
That would be my main tip. Would
Yeah.
be, okay, what are they wanting to experience? And what is your main goal? And then don't overdo it. Just keep it simple.
Yeah. And you're really thinking about the customer, which I think so many times for business owners, it's, you know, you're so focused on like the sale and like what you want, which is important, obviously, like for your business. That's the reason you're operating, right? But it's easy to like think, okay, well, what can I, especially when it comes to content creation, which is messaging.
Yep.
Right? Like, what can I do today that will make someone want to buy something? Or what can I do today that will help me get a new client? When that way of thinking probably isn't what you need to be thinking when you're to get the results you actually want.
Yeah, and we've heard it said before, like we need to be identifying our ideal clients' pain points and how are we going to solve them?
Right.
And how are we going to solve them in a way that's better than our competition.
Yeah.
But I think again, we can get so caught up in what's trending and what's all of the things that we see on social media, and it kind of can paralyze us from even posting.
Yes.
And so what I like to do is I like to think, if I was my ideal client and I had this gap in my messaging, in my branding, in my business, or maybe I needed to sell a course or a product, what would my ideal client want to hear from me? What would resonate with me?
Yeah.
And I think, again, we feel like we are so afraid of selling and being too salesy.
Yeah.
When really it's like, let's just approach with relatability.
Yeah.
You know, we are a human to human experience. And I think we get caught up in the age of AI and chat GPT and all the things. But what if we were just talking, it's me and you on the couch?
Yeah.
And you had a need and I knew I could fulfill that need. How would I talk to you?
As just like a friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people love that.
Yeah.
And they can relate to it.
Yeah. And that's what people really want more now is that relatability on social media. It's like we were just talking earlier to someone else about how like that's the first place people go so many times now when they're looking for something is Instagram or TikTok, right?
Yeah.
Because they want to connect with a person and like see like what's the vibe, like instead of just going straight to Google.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think too, Instagram, social media is now becoming kind of like the front door to your business.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think we would have said like even 5 years ago, honestly. I know social media has been around for a while, but we would used to say the website would be like the front door to your business, if you will. And now I feel like we really have pivoted to where like primarily Instagram, TikTok too, but for different businesses, it's different platforms. Yeah. But now it's like that is your front door and that is the first impression. And then if they like what they see on your Instagram, then they go to your website.
Yeah. I think that's so true.
You know.
So what do you think, like, because since we're talking about like Instagram and being the front door of your business, that's something that feels really overwhelming to beginners is like, how do I make it like look good? How do I curate it? Right.
Yep.
So like, what would be your advice to people who are just like working on building that presence on Instagram? Like, what should they focus on?
Now, this has been a struggle of mine. So we'll just say I have not arrived. I try to implement it. Okay. Yeah. But I'm just going to be real here and say that people do not care so much about the appearance of the aesthetics as they do the content. And I can get caught up. I'm guilty. I think a lot of business owners feel that way of like, well, I want it to look representable. Right, I want it to be this color palette and I want it to be like these types of photos. And that's great, but I don't think that's not the main thing that people are coming to your Instagram for. They're coming to learn something or to receive something. They're not coming to look at a pretty grid.
Yeah.
Now, of course, if you're a photographer, that's something that's different.
Right. There's certain niches. Yeah, totally.
I'm going to need you to have your photos looking nice on your Instagram.
If you're a wedding venue or something. Yeah.
You know, there's certain industries where that's important. Yeah. But if you are, a online coach, if you are, in the wellness space, if there's so many other areas where people are coming and they just want to see you living life and doing it and being raw. And I think that the main thing we can get hung up on is the aesthetics. Now, this is talking from someone whose work is to brand companies.
Yeah.
But that goes to show that branding is not just a logo.
It's so much more.
And branding is not just a color palette. It is actually the essence of your business.
Yeah.
It is how you represent your company. It's your team. It's your culture. It's your values. It is the value that you give your clients. And so I think that we can look at aesthetics. I'm all for it. I will create you a color palette.
Yeah.
And I am going to create
and it will look good.
And it will be amazing. And you're going to have a great logo.
Yeah.
The logo is not your brand. The logo is a decoration. The logo identifies you.
Yep. Yes. It's an identifier.
Yes. It's not who you are.
Yep.
And
That's
I think
so
that's
good.
very important.
That's such a good differentiation. Is that a word?
Yes.
To make.
It is now.
Because it is now. If it's not, it is now.
No.
Because that's what most people, you think, I need a brand, I need a logo.
Yeah.
Like, my brand is my logo and my colors.
Yes. And you need a logo.
Right.
And you need your colors. However, that is not your brand. Okay. We need to think through your messaging, your culture, your values. We need to be thinking, how are you getting your message across to your ideal client in the best way possible, in the clearest way possible.
Yeah.
And so logo, great. It's an identifier, but it is not your brand.
Yeah. So what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that you see business owners make when it comes to branding? It probably is similar along the lines of what you're saying.
I think the biggest mistake that I see with brands or with companies when it comes to branding is being really too caught up again in the aesthetics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though I understand it's almost like a brain ninja. We have to unlearn that branding is not just aesthetics.
Yes. Yeah.
So I feel like when I'm talking, I'm saying branding is not about aesthetics, and it probably feels weird to people. They're like, no, but
what?
Wait, then what is it's
is it?
Yeah, what do you mean if that was my logo? And I think that is the biggest mistake, getting caught up. So I want to take us back and say, if you were starting a new company and you were starting a new Instagram, I would still tell you need a logo and you need a color palette. You need these identifying markers that people are going to be able to recognize when they're scrolling through Instagram. Those same features, if you will, are making you stand apart.
Yep.
Those are important.
Yep.
I would still 100% say, yes, that is part of where you start. And then I would also say, but you need to get clear on what you offer and the value that you are bringing to the consumer. And so that is more of the deeper work that branding entails, because it's more of that feeling and not just what you're seeing.
Yeah, totally. So what do you do? I'm super curious to know, that deeper work, because I think for a lot of people it's okay, if you're listening right now and you're yes, I get that, but how the heck do I start doing that? What do you do? What's your process for that? Even when you're doing that with your clients?
So how we work is different packages. So we will do just the aesthetics package.
Sure.
Where if someone's I'm good, I just need a brand refresh, then we will do the logo and all of that stuff, right? And that's amazing for those who need that, and they're clear. And then the other end, it is honestly us having in-depth meetings, going over and over what gap they're trying to fill, what gap is currently in their business, and really getting very clear on, okay, so you're saying you want to sell this product. Okay, what do you want people to know about this product? What do you want people to feel about this product? How do you want to educate people about this product? And then even going deeper into, are you being super straightforward? Are we bringing humor into your brand?
There's the personality almost.
Personality. So then we dive into the business personality. Are you front facing? as the owner?
Uh-huh.
Or is it your team? Or is it not? It's just the product. So it's really particular for each industry and like for each client. Kind of how we go about it. It's so custom.
Yeah.
But it's so important to know that the personality is more than is where the messaging and the brand flourish and thrive and come to life. So I have like a whole prompting and questions, and we go over them, and we really get clear on, okay, these are the types of things that people don't think about. And they just throw out their logo and they throw out some content and they cross their fingers and they hope that it catches.
Yeah.
Whereas we come from a more strategic approach, and we really have to go through, like you mentioned, the personality of the company. And then from there, take those action steps accordingly.
That's so interesting.
And it's almost like a psychology.
Yes, it's
branding.
more about,
Versus.
Because, well, when you think of like buyer behavior, people buy like off emotions usually because it's like, oh, this thing makes me feel inspired, or this thing makes me feel happy, right? That's like, they got some kind of feeling from the thing.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, and that's what we need to hone in on, package it, and rinse and repeat, and repeat. And a lot of times it's trial and error. And I do want to say for everyone who's listening that some things you're going to try and you may have thought this was aligned, and it might not. It may have fell flat, and that's okay. Social media, we are trying things, we are learning, we are growing, and we need to give ourselves the freedom to do that and release that pressure and say, okay, let me release these 4 different types of content. I'm going to see which ones do well. From there, I'm going to look at the analytics and then I'm going to say, okay, this one did really well. I'm going to produce more of that content while I'm learning other forms. We'll do that again. Rinse and repeat. See what ones our ideal client is actually resonating with.
Right, that they're connecting with,
Yes, and not only connecting, because I think we can look at socials and we can say, well, this one went viral, so everyone connected with it. Okay, great. Yes, that's increasing your brand awareness. A viral video. But did that increase your sales?
Right.
And that is something that we really need to look at. If one reel got 200 views, but you got sales from those views, and then another one got 1 million, but they just thought you were funny.
Oh, totally.
Well, what one?
Which one's better?
Yeah.
Probably the one that's making you money.
Yes.
And that's your goal, right?
Exactly.
I think that's another thing too. Like when you're like, like doing like content strategy and stuff like that, I know for me, like when I'm creating my content, it's like, okay, what's the goal of this post? Like, is this one I'm just going to connect with people and like not like this, the goal of this isn't to make sales. But then like, okay, this one, I want to sell some stuff.
Yes.
Like, do you do that with
Absolutely. And too, the ones that you connect, the reels that maybe, because you look at your content in like pillars, right? So like if the entertaining ones are doing so well, there's ways that you can integrate the messaging, again, going back to messaging, that are going to direct it or like warm up your audience for if you're going to offer a course or for a new product launch. So you could still be funny and still entertain. And there's like this little, like a little nod in the caption or a little like maybe on the actual reel itself, there's like verbiage that might hint to something coming, and that way it doesn't feel too salesy and it doesn't feel like you're throwing it down their throat. We are, again, bringing them the personality of the brand, and we're not just selling to sell. We want to bring value and entertainment and be a resource and position ourselves as an authority in our space. And so that means we have to look at so many different aspects that things our company can provide. Right.
And okay, that's another thing too, is authority, right? Because I think people hear that and know that when it comes to content is like, okay, yes, I need to build brand authority, or if they're the face of their brand, if it's like a personal brand, like I need to stand out as an authority. But how do I actually do that without, this is actually like a frequently asked question that my students ask me a lot. So I think that people really like us talking about this. Is like, okay, how do I show my authority without just sharing tips and tricks or like, this is what I know, or like, this is, but how do I actually position myself as like, oh, okay, yep, like she's the person I want to buy from?
I mean, a lot of that does take time.
Yeah.
I would say, I don't think you just jump in and you
it's
say,
just instant authority.
I'm an authority, especially if you're pivoting.
That's so
into
true.
another industry.
Yeah.
So I think that there's some maybe like, I don't know, pipe dream kind of
Yes.
of like, okay, now I'm here and I'm pivoting and
Now I'm an authority.
I just have to like fake it to be an authority.
Right.
I think that sometimes we fall into that too. Like, I'm just gonna say I'm an authority. Like, I'm an expert here.
Yeah, right.
But it's okay to be like, okay, this is how long I've been doing this. This is what's worked for me. But I think something so powerful is transformation stories, testimonials, things that people can relate to. Again, it's the person sitting across from you. It's the one-on-one. And I think that even establishes you as an authority. It doesn't mean you had to work with 100 people and now you're an authority. It's what worked.
Yeah.
What worked. It is this person came and this is what we did and this was their result. And I did this X amount of times, or you don't even have to say that, but it's like, even if you did it 5 times and it worked, you don't have to say 5 times, but you could say, it's been shown that my method is proven. 5 out of 5, in your head, you're saying 5 out of 5. It could be more, it could be less, but you are showing them the fruit.
Yeah.
And I think that when you're showing people the fruit of what you're offering, then there's more buy-in and then you are credible. So yeah, definitely the transformation stories and then also testimonials. I think things like this, hosting podcasts, not everyone, wants to have a podcast, but things like these where you are connecting with other people and you are providing not just your own knowledge, but other people's also establishes you as an authority. There's other ways to establish your authority versus being like, oh, this is my course and I think it's going to help you. It will help you. Trust me. It's there's other avenues where you build credibility.
That's so good.
I think too, on stories, I think we kind of like on stories on Instagram, we can be you and show what you're doing in your life and show that you are not just telling other people to do these things, but you are living them.
Yeah.
And they can see the fruit in your own life. If you're starting from nothing, start with yourself.
Yep.
If you're starting with 0, start with yourself.
Yeah. And even like sharing the journey and sharing that, I feel like is so powerful. Like I know for me in the beginning of my business, I was just like super open about the things that I was still a beginner at and like that I was working on building. And I'd even like sometimes share my goals like with my audience, Yeah. But like it was fun because then like when I did reach them, I'd be like, hey guys, like, and everyone would be like, yay.
And they're like proud of you.
Yes.
They're like, I love you. We're friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is so fun because people, I think, like innately want to be a part of something or feel like they're a part of something.
Well, you know what it does? It gives hope and it inspires that if you can do it, so can they. And this has nothing to do with branding, but I did 2 fitness competitions, and
you did?
Yes, and it was in the matter of 3 months. I was like, I didn't cheat one time, didn't do an extra little scoop of turkey, nothing. And I had to do almost 2 hours of cardio 6 days a week. I was training. I was learning how to pose. I was walking in the heels. I had never done it before.
Yeah.
And we touched on, I'm a burn survivor, so I have scars on my body.
Yeah.
So let's bring it up a notch. Not only are you doing a fitness competition and bringing your followers along for the ride, that's what I was doing. I'm also sharing, man, this is a mental battle for me physically.
Yeah.
So when I was doing that, to your point of bringing people along for the ride, it inspired so many people.
So cool.
In not only their working out, but accepting who they are, loving themselves. And it was like they were a part of my ride.
Yeah.
And then they were asking me about fitness. I could have been a fitness coach after this. They were asking me like, do you have meal plans?
Right.
Do you? I could have monetized it. But I was like, no, I'll just voice memo you and tell you all my secrets. But it's when you are vulnerable and when you are brave enough to say, hey, I'm not an authority or I'm not an expert. And then you build it. It makes
you do that.
And then they see you do it. And then you become an authority. It's okay. I think humility is so overlooked in this generation. And humility opens the door to so many opportunities.
So much.
Like if we can just be teachable and admit, actually, I don't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know that answer.
Yep.
But I'll find out for
Actually,
you.
I don't have it all
Or you know
figured
what?
out.
I'm gonna like I'll find that out, or I will do it and then I'll let you know my results.
Mm-hmm.
I would way rather trust someone with my money or anything else if I got that answer.
Totally.
Versus being like, yeah, this course will change your life. I don't know, maybe this isn't the right fit for you. Maybe this course isn't, but I might have another course that might be a better fit. Or you know what? Let's keep in touch.
Yep.
That's way more appealing than just like, yeah, sign up for this. Yes, take this product. Right. And so I think that again, that transformation story, that humility, that vulnerability opens the door to opportunities, which is what I believe has allowed me to get to where I am today with working with brands like Puma and Hulu and, you know, Michael's. I've had that opportunity, and I really believe, one, it's God, and it's God that's given me a humble and teachable spirit. And I always tell my clients and my team to consider your wake. And what that means is consider how you are going to leave people after you have interacted with them. And it's everything. It's everything. And that's why I've been able to be successful. I have not been perfect. I've not been perfect with all the branding campaigns. I've not been perfect with all my installations. But when I'm wrong or when there's been a mistake, I'm always going to go back and fix it or do my best to do that. And so that's very valuable. And I think we don't talk enough about that.
Yeah.
We just think, hustle, grind, do it. Like,
Right.
but, you know, but what about when it doesn't?
Yeah.
When you kind of fall on your face a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, what are you doing to make it right? So.
And that alone will make you stand out.
And that alone
Because
is like,
most people aren't.
You're an authority. You know?
Yeah. It's just a
Write that
cycle.
down. Yeah.
It's true though. I mean, like when
you
you're,
learn.
Yes.
It's really just learning is what makes you an authority. If you're learning, you are now, you know, an authority.
Yeah. You're willing to learn. You're willing to try, willing to fail, willing to bring people with you while you're going through all of that.
100%.
And I love what you said about the wake too, because like you're making that all about the people you're serving.
Yeah.
That's not about you. You're thinking about like, how am I leaving them? Like, what are they left with after their experience with me? Which that's like such a great way to just sum up branding in general. Is like,
absolutely,
what are they left with after they have an encounter with my brand?
Exactly.
How do they feel?
And we need to hone in on that.
Yeah. I hope that this is, for all of you listening, that this is giving you so many light bulb moments, because it really, when you think about it this way, for me, it makes it so simple. Like you said earlier, it's so easy to overcomplicate it, which like, I get it, because like you go on social media or whatever, and it's like, you need this brand strategy, this posting strategy, this cadence, like, and it can just feel so overwhelming. And it's not one size fits all. And I think that's why people get overwhelmed, is because they try to like fit into a certain box that's working for someone else.
Yes.
But it's not right for them.
Yes, we try to copy and paste when really sometimes it's just you.
Yeah.
It's just you. It's just your team. And maybe you are the secret sauce.
Yeah.
You are the branding. And I know we talked off camera about this, but when I first started my company, I built my company off of me, off my personality, off how I showed up on Instagram, off my relationships and my networking and my reputation. It wasn't, I came out and it was like the Chef Creative and it was all glamorous. It was me with my kids and me and my husband and at the time, and that's a whole other story, going through something like a divorce on social media. But it's there's beauty in that. And I think that we also get caught up in, do we need to have a personal account? And then we have a business account.
Yes. We should talk about that.
Yes, I know. I brought it back to that. But yeah, it's like, so we get caught up, and I was very caught up on it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I am the Chef Creative, and people love to see me with my kids too, and they love to see my fashion, and they ask me about it. So obviously they want to like see that too on Shift.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to know, where do you want to go? You have to have clear vision, and sometimes the vision gets blurry. That's okay. You got to wipe off the glasses sometimes, redirect. Okay, where do you want to go? And just keep at, okay, is this aligned with where I'm going?
Yeah.
And for me, I decided strategically at I think it was like year 8, year 9. That I was like, I think it's time for a personal account. Not that I didn't want to share personal things on the Shift Creative, but it just got to the point where I was like, I want to attract different types of people on Shift.
Yep.
And with my personal, I had a different goal. On my personal, I'm like, I want to, you know, start really pursuing speaking and really pursue sharing my story,
Yep.
And helping other women grow in their confidence. That was a different thing.
Yep.
And so I was like, I'm not going to muddy the waters and confuse, again with messaging, confuse my target audience,
Yeah.
my ideal client, what I'm selling
Yeah.
or what I'm offering of value by bringing that over to my business.
Yep.
So I think to free up or to give permission to the listener, you can start with you. You could start as one. You could build. And there's always freedom to pivot. There's always freedom to start another account. There's no right or wrong way.
Yeah.
It is just where you are headed.
Yeah, you're not married to whatever you're doing now or whatever you decide now, which I think is hopefully comes as a relief to people. But and I think people know that, like, okay, yeah, I can, but like actually you can. And people who have successful businesses have done that so many times where they've pivoted and changed.
I think sometimes though people know it in their head,
Yeah.
but it does give them like a release to hear, oh, okay, well she did it. So, okay, cool.
Yeah.
You know, because yeah, like logically we're like, sure, you can make another Instagram account, go do that. But I think there's fear there.
Oh, totally.
And so the fear prohibits us. So I think it's very valuable to hear that, look, I did it and it's okay. And you're going to be okay. And if I wanted to reintegrate it, that's also going to be okay. Right? It just depends on the goal.
Yeah, right. I love that you like talked about it being based on the goal, because I've seen it work both ways with like my students, where it's like they just totally like pivot on their account to something different and they like keep the same account, right? I've seen it where people start new accounts. Now for you were still like sharing
Yes.
like on both, right? You weren't like pivoting your entire account to something different.
Yeah.
But I think for people that's important for them to like really think about, is just like, because it's always like, which one's better? Is the algorithm going to hate me if I do this? Like, and I don't think that it's better to do one or the other.
I agree.
It's just what's your goal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you get clear on your goal and you know where you're headed, then it's going to be an easier decision for you.
I love that. And like for you, it was like you knew, I don't want to be the face of this anymore, like forward facing on social media. So that was like,
yeah, it was easier for me, and I wanted to bring in my team more because I also wanted to give credit to my team too. I started feeling like, oh, I'm just the face of this, but there's so much back end that goes into it.
Yeah.
And I almost started feeling like, I don't like icky, for a lack of a better word, you know, that's a very professional word. I just kind of felt like, no, this is a team.
Team
I'm not the
effort.
one that's freaking always picking out your color palette here. You know what I mean? Like, it's like there's people behind the scenes, and I wanted to bring them into that.
Yeah.
And I started kind of feeling like I was almost like glamorized in a way, and I didn't like that. Like maybe I did like it, and then I realized I don't want it.
Yeah.
So there's just things personally where I was like, I don't want my business to be an idol in my life.
Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. And I think too, for people, like you said, these are like the deeper things you have to think about.
It's literally like counseling for your brand. Like, so
Brand
counseling
therapy.
did come through for me. It did come through for me when I, since I have a degree.
Yeah.
But it did,
Yeah.
it's full circle.
Totally.
It really is.
That's so cool though now. Just like, I didn't even think about that, but that's so true. Like in applying that to, because there's so much inner work
Yes.
in growing a business.
Oh my gosh.
And-
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
We could talk about
Well, like what are some of the things that you do? Like,
from my personal,
like just like for your mindset and like just to like keep yourself in like that good headspace.
So, well, I'm a Christian, so everything that I try to do, and I don't do this perfectly, but I do have a lens of, okay, like, consider my wake, how are people interacting?
Yep.
And so I take that time to really be in prayer, to be reading my Bible, to be in in community, and get wisdom. I think that's something that I also think is undervalued is getting wisdom from people that have gone before you, people that are older, people that are in a different life season. It could be a mentor, it could be someone that you pay as a coach, it could be a pastor. I think that's something that I really, really highly esteem.
Yeah. Awesome.
Before I do any big decision, I always say, actually, this doesn't need to be answered right now. I'm going to go and get some wisdom from someone that I trust, and also pray about it.
Yeah.
I work out a lot. So working out helps clear me mentally.
Yeah.
I would love to say that I get enough sleep during the day, during the night, during the day, both. No, but I'm working on that.
Yeah.
I'm like hitting like 5 hours, but that you should do that.
Get good sleep.
You guys should sleep. But no, definitely it is my faith. And I do
Yeah.
think that makes me different in my industry. And I think it is hard to be a woman of faith in my industry as well.
Yeah.
And in this world. But I'm really vocal about it personally and in my business.
amazing.
And I hope that attracts
Yeah.
people and shows people a different perspective
Yeah.
as well. So I do hone into that for my own mental sanity.
And that just goes back to you being you, like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Just being yourself.
Exactly. And not being scared to show all of you.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, like you don't want to overshare. There's certain things that you're going to keep close to your heart. But I think that's why wisdom is important.
Yeah.
And discernment. And for me, the way I cultivate that is within my community and through reading the Bible.
Yeah. It helps you stay grounded.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's so important to have like those places to go to, outside of it's just so easy to get caught up in like all of the things
I know
in your business and like the to-dos, and you lay your head down on your pillow at night and like you can't shut your brain off.
Yes.
And
I would say too, sometimes as business owners, we lose track of our purpose.
Yes.
And we become so focused on the goal. And sometimes goal does not equal purpose.
Yeah.
And I think we can get overwhelmed, burnt out, and drained. And we just try to keep up.
Yeah.
Because if it's not linked to purpose, you're always going to end up chasing the wind.
Yeah.
So that's something that I really try. It's the same thing. And then like, I'm not trying to like over spiritualize everything, but even with your branding or with, these things that we're talking about, like messaging, and the same with your personal life.
Yeah.
It's just like, what does it link to? Like, are we reflecting? Like, are we on the wrong ladder? One time I did a message, and it was at my church, and it was a whole message about 2 ladders, and we're like, one's of self and one's of service. And it's like, sometimes you get to the top of that ladder and you're like, I'm on the wrong ladder.
Yeah.
And so you have to reevaluate.
Yeah. And service is a huge part of it. Building
Absolutely.
a brand.
Yeah.
Service.
It's like everything is this. It like coincides.
It's all connected.
One hopefully makes you money.
Yeah. Oh, it's all connected though.
It's true.
Oh,
it is.
This is so good. I hope for all of you who are listening that you're really like taking notes. If you haven't listened, if you've listened to this once, listen to this again, because this is so much goodness. But it really is, like, what I'm hearing you say is it's just like simple. Like
Simple, but we make it simple but not easy.
Yes. Yeah.
It's simple but not easy.
Yeah. Like, what would be like the 3 things, like, for everyone listening that you would want them to take away? Like, as people who are maybe like beginner business owners, or maybe they have a business but they don't like feel connected to their brand, or they don't feel like, they're trying to maybe like pivot or like find their voice and their brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it doesn't have to be like 3 things, but like, what are the things that you would say, okay, focus on these things first?
I would say for anyone that is new in developing their brand or their business, I would say, 1, get clear on what you are wanting your customers to experience. 2, I would say, get wisdom from someone that's gone before you. 3, I would say, give yourself freedom to experiment.
Yeah.
And I would also say, don't be afraid to fail. And because you will learn from the failures.
Yep.
And then I would say, 5, you could hire me and I will help you do it. No, but honestly, I will definitely, like, if anyone has any questions, they can follow me at The Shift Creative, and I'm more than happy to answer questions.
That's amazing.
If they just needed more clarity
Yeah.
on today's conversation,
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to be as transparent as possible.
Yeah, well, and that's also something to consider as a business owner is if that's not your zone of genius, and like that's why there's people like you in the world who are so
100%.
amazing at helping pull that out of them and like building it for them.
Yeah, because we can't do it all.
Yeah.
And maybe you could do it to an extent, but if you know it's not your zone of genius, it could even be your zone of excellence.
Or you just hate it.
Yeah, or you're just like, I'm not creative at all,
Yeah.
right? That's why there
Yeah.
are people that can help you with that. And I think that that's a gift to know that.
Yeah.
And then to surround yourself or hire out or outsource or however the case may be so that you can focus on what you're good at.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, where can everyone find you so that they can connect with you and everything?
Yeah, so for The Shift Creative, it is at The Shift Creative on Instagram.
Awesome.
Website is theshiftcreative.com. Personally, you can find me at Alexis and Andra. And those are my main accounts.
I love it. You guys go follow her. She's amazing and inspiring. And your page is beautiful. Your Shift Creative page is stunning.
You know what? It does have to be if I'm promoting brands.
Yes.
But my personal one, I still struggle because even on my personal one, I try to like make it look
Sure,
a certain
it's your
way.
personal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what you're doing. You're so good at it.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate you.
I've loved having you on.
Me too. It's been fun.
Thank you so much for coming. Thanks everyone for listening. Bye.
Bye.